All right. I'm back, everybody. Mr. Cena, remaining single forever? Well, learning to love yourself is the beginning of a lifelong romance, they say. But I wanted to start this into another stream because this is more important. Michael McKee's ex speaking out and talking with the Tepes. This is huge, honestly. And Surviving the Survivor, they just went over this. So I think this is awesome. What up there, Mac? We're going over that Michael McKee's ex actually spoke up and talked with the Tepe family, which to me is huge. We're going to find out more about what she has to say about things. But we're also going to wait for people to flow in here because I ended the previous stream to start this stream anew.
A grand jury has formally indicted Dr. Michael McKee for the execution-style murders of his ex-wife, Monique Tepe, and her husband, Dr. Spencer Tepe, a dentist. 5 felony counts. It was 2 murders, so why 5 felony counts? We're going to get into that, including using a firearm with a suppressor, and prosecutors are signaling this wasn't just murder. It was premeditated and planned out.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host.
Down the Tepe double murder case out of Franklin County, Ohio, otherwise known as the home to Columbus, Ohio, otherwise known as the home to the Ohio State University. And typically they'd be playing in the national championship game. They seem like they're in it every year, but not to be. The Miami Hurricanes, my adopted college football team, now that I live here, will be playing Indiana. And I can tell you, it's an absolutely mess of a zoo out there. Tons of fans. The president is in town for the game. Craziness on the roads, which is why I'm getting to you just a couple minutes late. So please forgive me. But accused killer Michael McKee, again, has now been indicted by a grand jury on multiple aggravated murder counts. And here to help us break it down, he is a retired detective in this police department, Jay Fulton, a homicide detective with the Columbus, Ohio PD. And next up, a friend of his through the job and first-time best guest, and we're honored to have him. David, I should have asked you before we went on air. Is it DeVillers?
Yeah, that works.
There we go. David DeVillers, a former U.S. attorney, the big macher here, former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Ohio, former federal prosecutor with direct experience prosecuting in Franklin County, and now working privately. And last but not least, you know him well, too, Jeff Weninger, who calls Ohio home. That's where he's from, but he spent 33 years with the L.A. Sheriff's Office and then most of his career at the LAPD, rising to the rank of lieutenant. He is the author of On Thin Ice, and today is MLK Day, so obviously take a minute to think about the amazing impact MLK Jr. had on this world today, which was a very big one as protests are breaking out in different cities, but including Minnesota. But here at STS, we avoid politics like the plague here. David, let's just jump into this. This is a little unusual in that the indictment, a grand jury was convened, and they indicted this guy very quickly. 4 counts of aggravated murder, 1 count of aggravated burglary, firearm specifications on every murder count with the alleged use of a firearm equipped with a suppressor. Now, we even talked about the possibility of a suppressor, and I was kind of shirking it off, saying that's really stuff that you see in the movies, but it appears that maybe this was used. But explain to the audience, to STS Nation, why you have 4 counts of aggravated murder against a husband and a wife.
So there's 2 victims, right? So you're going to at least have 2 counts of aggravated murder, but there are 2 different theories. The first is that it was a murder that took place during another felony, that being aggravated burglary, right? So he broke into the house for the purpose of killing him. That makes it aggravating. I mean, it goes from 15 to life to 20 to life. The second, and that's on both of them, right? The second theory on aggravated murder is what we call prior calc and design, kind of like premeditated. And it's not, the jury instruction is pretty good in Ohio for a prosecutor when it comes to that. It just can't be something that's sudden. You know, you can have some sort of deliberation, some intended purpose. And that goes back to the spec, the suppressor spec, right? I mean, it helps. You don't bring a firearm, particularly with suppressor, unless you've thought about it, unless you had some sort of design, some purpose ahead of time. And
again, it's not necessarily true, as I went over in the other video too. But yeah, they can very well be used for crimes, but they can also be used for other things. And in this case with Michael McKee, I agree. It was used for a crime.
That's where that goes to. And the suppressor is just a spec. So which means it's a 6-year spec. Usually it's a 3-year spec, a gun spec, but with a suppressor, it's 6 years. So instead of really 20 to life for each victim, it's really 26 to life because of the firearm specification. That has to be consecutive to the underlying offense. So in 26 years, if convicted, and at minimum 26 years, he can go to a parole board. But there's also probably strong likelihood that each of those 2 victims be run consecutively on top of each other. So let me do some math here. 52 to life is what you're likely looking at if convicted.
Interesting. Dave Fulton, Sarah Adams, Ski Hat Sarah. She used to be with us every day, and now she's back, and we love it. Shortest arrest warrant I've ever seen. I mean, if you want to just comment on that part of it. Also, can you piggyback on what David was saying? I think he said it in a different way, but one of the things I was reading is that Ohio is a little unusual. You can basically charge almost with 2 subtly different theories in case a jury is not completely sold on one theory. And that's how
the way I would see it, Livin, is unless you can add to your life, unless someone can add to your life and improve upon your solitude, you don't need them there. And this is the thing about it, right? This is why it's, to me, one of the best principles of practicing radical self-respect is becoming happy and single. If you can learn to enjoy your own company and love your life, your bar for what you're willing to put up with becomes like pretty high, right? And rightfully so. Where a lot of people, especially when they're younger, they're not happy on their own. They have these raging hormones. They feel like they need to be with someone else. And especially when you're younger also, there's a group of people that will shame you for being single. Or they'll try to guilt trip you for being single, especially as a guy. They'll say, oh, you're just a loser and you have nobody. But usually the people that are saying that, they're projecting what they would think if they were single. And often they can also be single too. But often those are the people that have settled and they want everyone around them to settle too. But an intimate relationship, a relationship you want to be serious with someone, that's one of the biggest decisions you're going to make in your entire life. So I wouldn't recommend settling in any way. And you want to get with somebody that is compatible with you and who's also done the work and is emotionally mature. If you don't find someone who's emotionally mature and hasn't done the work, it's going to be very tough to build a strong foundation with that person. But the better you are on your own, and I'm in a good place on my own now, but you see it. You see all the nonsense out there and you think, well, I'm good on my own. I can just leave and cut this off to go back to my life I'm okay with. But when you're not okay on your own, a lot of people become more willing to overlook things. They'll overlook red flags, or they'll dare, defend, excuse, explain, rationalize. You don't want to wind up in that kind of position.
Understood the additional charges. Am I right there at all?
That's my understanding. I'm not being an attorney, but yeah, the state has 2 different theories of aggravated murder here. And like Dave said, the first one is during the commission of a felony, which would be the entry into the residence, the aggravated burglary. Second being that McKee clearly put time into this thought process The drive from Chicago would have been part of the thought process. The purchasing of particular equipment, if this silent or suppressor that they're referencing, that would those are all planning events that they are provable, obviously, by the state. And as far as the short arrest warrant, the charging documents don't contain. They don't contain a lot of information. That information now will be available to Mr. McKee's counsel through this discovery process, but you don't have to put a lot of information in the charging document. It's the shorter the better usually.
And David, I'm going to get to Jeff in just one second, but let me. There's a question here. Do you think they'll get a plea? That he'll get a plea, or they'll go straight for the death penalty?
So these, for those who don't know, are my magic wands. I got about 5 different colors of them, but they are reminders to myself and others that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you're not going to be able to do the big things right, period.
Apparently, Ohio does have the death penalty. Is this a death penalty eligible case? Does it sound like it's something that they could pursue? And then let's start there. Does it sound like a death penalty case?
Well, yeah, a death specification, which what you need before you can seek the death penalty in Ohio, would be a course of conduct killing 2 or more people. And clearly that's what you have here. However, you have to indict those specifications. And at this point, the death penalty has not been indicted. Now, Shayla Favors, who's the current prosecutor, has said multiple times she's opposed to the death penalty, and she has that discretion there. I would not rule out the possibility that this goes federal still. And we've seen that particularly, and Jay can tell you, in Columbus, where we've worked together and eventually a state case ends up going federal. You have a federal nexus, you have a federal death penalty case, and you likely have if the victims really want it, and Ms. Favors is against it, and that's her prerogative. She was elected by the people of Franklin County. It could go federal, and they would seek the death penalty. Dominic Gerace has my old job and was my chief in the Dayton office, and he's done it before, and I'm sure he's not opposed to it.
Were you the DA in Franklin County, or? I was
the presidentially appointed U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Ohio. So Columbus, Dayton, and Cincinnati are our main offices. And then I was at AUSA for many years. And
Kat, is Danny Elfman? Is he the person that played Jack Skellington in The Nightmare Before Christmas, or am I thinking of someone else?
County prosecutor for many years, trying cases with Jay in both state and federal court. Murders.
Yeah. And now, Jeff, I promise I'm coming. But what about this? We have David DeVillers here with a lot of experience in the law. What about the fact that the police chief specifically described this as a domestic violence murder and a targeted attack? How does that play in terms of the law?
It doesn't. Sorry about that. It doesn't really. I mean, other than the fact that
the phone calls.
It goes to motive, right? So motive isn't an element of the offense, but surely really is strong in this case that what you're going to want to prove. So it really just goes to motive, not to any legal standard. There's not a. There are federally it might federally it's interstate stalking would be the connection that he traveled from one state to another with the purpose of killing somebody. And there's also elements of that offense that come into, domestic violence and family members. But statewide, in the elements of the offense as charged now, as indicted, it goes to motive, but not to the elements of the offense.
And one other thing, and then we're going to Jeff. David, what does SPAC stand for? And I was going to ask you the same question. I wasn't sure if I was hearing it correctly. What is that in English and not legalese?
SPAC? Did I say SPAC?
I think so.
Specification. It's a firearm specification. Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you're gonna have to correct me on those. Sorry.
All right. And Jeff, thank you to Sarah for this. Jeff Weninger, suppressors, otherwise known as silencers, they're really things that you see in the movie. I mean, in your career as a lieutenant in the LAPD. I mean, how many crimes did you roll up to where someone was actually using a suppressor? The language is weird, but do you understand this to be fact that he was using a suppressor, or the possibility that he was using a suppressor? What's it mean?
Well, it's my understanding, in the way I read some documents that I read, that it said semi-automatic or a suppressor. So I don't know if it's been established that he actually used a suppressor or not. I don't know. The other gentlemen may have better information in regards to that than I do. But quite frankly, I'll be honest, I can't think of one case that I'm familiar with that I dealt with in the LAPD where there was a suppressor used. I really can't. It's but I just think it speaks to.
Makes you wonder why they're not used more often, because a lot of times it's the noise that draws attention. So why wouldn't you want to use one to be more discreet? I mean, that's what I would think.
His frame of mind. Now listen,
Not that I'm encouraging violence, you see.
I find it kind of humorous, because if he's going to go to that extent to have a suppressor, he sure did a lot of other sloppy things if he was really trying to avoid being caught. So, that was really a lot of effort for not really.
Yeah. Jay, to you, how do you understand the language involving the suppressor? Shout out to Nikki Cuds, over 2 years as a member, a friend of mine, friend of the show. Thanks for being here. But Jay, how do you understand this use of suppressor? And then we'll get back to David on this. And also, I mean, you're dealing with, I forget the name of the gang there, the North Side, whatever they are. But do those guys use suppressors? I mean, it is very rare. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, it's rare. Firearms now, the more modern, more newer firearms come with threaded barrels. This is something that you didn't really see on the open market or the general market in 15 years ago.
So word on the street is that Monique's wedding video was viewed many, 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 many times before the ending of their lives. And the speculation is that it was Michael McKee watching it many, 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 many times. And, I have no doubts that if he knew of it, he certainly probably watched it. And he probably watched it to nurture his bitterness and resentment. And again, that's not why it happened, but it didn't help. I'll put it like that. The losing control was all that was needed. That was just a little bit more fuel, perhaps.
But as firearms manufacturers get more creative, now you can purchase a gun that's ready-made for it without any altercations by a gunsmith. You can purchase handguns with threaded barrels that will accept suppressors, which are also now sold. A lot of states require special licensing. Some states probably do not. That was not something we ran into in our days investigating the homicides in the Short North Posse and that type of thing. You would occasionally might find an automatic weapon or a weapon that had been converted automatic, but suppressors for semi-automatic handguns was not a regular thing. I think clearly and I wasn't privy to the grand jury testimony, but to indict that way, I would say that the investigators, the assigned detectives, presented enough testimony based on their investigation to the Franklin County grand jury that they were.
And for those who are curious, this is Surviving the Survivor. I said this in the beginning, but I'll say it again.
Were able to get that indictment, which would lead me to believe that there was enough evidence that a suppressor was in fact utilized.
Yeah, the only other case I can think of, I know it was not recent, it feels like it was recent, was Luigi Mangione in the case of the CEO of United Healthcare. He apparently 3D printed a gun and a suppressor, and I think he was found with a suppressor.
Unfortunately, though, they seem to have buried the lead in here. And you have to watch a lot of this video to get to the lead being what Michael McKee's ex-girlfriend said and what she discussed with the Tepe family. That's what I'm interested about.
his bag. Sarah Adams here, we'll go full circle back to David here. Did he make it or buy it? I have no idea, but David, to you, just explain. Jay is saying, I think all of us are a little confused about whether it's like kind of a catch-all in case he used a suppressor, or they know and indicted him because he actually did use one. Which of the two is it?
Well, they have evidence that, I mean, they have to have a probable cause that a suppressor was actually used. You know, it's Jeff is saying you have there's a semi-automatic, and then there's the gun with suppressor specification. There's probably, again, an alternative.
And that's a good point there, Livin. And the chat said that wedding video, anything in that wedding video that showed their home, now that's given anyone who wants to look, who knows what to look for. Oh, okay, that's where that is, that where this is, and can give them an idea of the layout. Now, how many people, when they're making a wedding video, are they thinking about the worst case possibility? Oh, someone's going to be looking at this video with a microscope to figure out all of the ways they might try to be able to break in, or where the cameras are or something. You're probably not thinking that when you make a wedding video, right? But a criminal, someone like Michael McKee, they'll take anything they can get.
The jury could find there was no suppressor used, but there was a semi-automatic, which is a 3-year spec, with kind of a lesser included. The 6-year specification is that a suppressor is actually used. And as both gentlemen say, that suppressors are pretty rare. We do say the Jordan Posse case, that Donathan Moon murder that we tried, that there was a suppressor in that one, but it was really kind of homemade, and that's what we see a lot of these situations where they're somehow kind of rigged up to be to suppress the noise, which may also explain that, to my understanding, in this case there were no shots heard, and I don't think Shot Spotter went off, so that could be a reason that there was some.
So the wedding video, I think, was shot in many different locations, and I think since Monique's brother was a photographer, there was just simply tons of pictures of them. There's been a lot of professional pictures of Dr. Tepe and his wife, Monique. Now, were any of them at the home? I think there might have been some, but there were certainly other places as well, right? So, but again, this is just speculation how someone could have figured it out. This is not a fact. Keep that in mind. This is speculation.
Sort of suppression. They're usually not all that good. It's not like the movies where you hear it's less so than otherwise, but they're usually not extremely effective.
And then these U.S. attorneys, they drop things thinking that we all know. But Shot Spotter, what is that? A system that Columbus has that picks up gunshots? What is that?
Yeah, it's a system kind of throughout the city. And Jay probably knows more than I, but it will actually kind of triangulate where the shots are coming from, and you can get a general.
But here's the thing: in that video where Monique's saying her vows, where is that? It doesn't look like it's a church. Could it be like a hall or a home? We don't know where it is, but that doesn't look like a traditional church. We played the video the other day. I don't think that was in a church.
Idea, like even a little better than like cell site data. Like you can kind of a general idea of where they are, and the law enforcement can go to those scenes relatively quickly to.
All right, so it's their home. It's their home. So the wedding video, that was in the home. And again, I'd have to go over it to see what they could actually learn from it. I don't know. But someone who has criminal intent, they're going to be going over that with a fine-tooth comb
to see what's going on.
Edward Murphy, always great to have him in the chat. Joel has his Tundra Camo Arctic Clipper sweater on. Listen, I don't want to be insensitive, but it has dropped to about 70 here. It will be for game time tonight, 67, with the possibility of getting into the high 50s. It has been brutally cold here. I guarantee you, when you get into shots of the people in the stands tonight, you'll see some Miami women in their mink coats tonight. It's going to be unbearable. Jeff, I think I overheard you saying in Ohio they had to close school down tomorrow. Is that right? I assume it's not because it's going to be 67 degrees, Jeff.
Yeah, here in northeastern Ohio, we're going to be below zero in temperature, and it'll be about 25 to 30 below with the wind chill.
Ooh, that doesn't sound good.
So, Sam, it's not been established that the ex, like Michael, stalked them, but I think it's very likely. I heard rumors that someone said that they saw Michael in the area a couple days before, but that was just rumors. I don't think that's confirmed. But knowing what I know about narcissistic abuse and coercive control, it would not surprise me one bit if he was stalking and cyber stalking Monique. That's what I would say. That's actually a good point too. If COVID was going on, that would explain that as well, right? If it was COVID wedding, good point.
Good. So, Jeff, back to you here. Now, a grand jury doesn't decide guilt, but it did find probable cause on every count. Essentially, finding that McKee planned this, that he was a shooter, the firearm suppressor were central to the crime. Talk about just the issue of probable cause with this grand jury. What does it mean in layman's terms?
Well, it's just the probable cause is that they know that you can demonstrate that you have the evidence that lends to believe that a crime has occurred and that this person that is being charged committed that crime. So, it appears they have a mountain of evidence here. It's a good thing that it worked out this way. I mean,
So as I read everyone's things, people say so many different things, and I have to pierce out what's true, what's not true, what's speculation, what other channels have said, what's fact. And it takes some due diligence.
going through the grand jury, and that now goes to common pleas court, where when they get him back to Ohio, I think it's probably what Jay may know better than I, but probably within 48 hours, he would have a bail hearing to set a bail or deny him bail or what have you. But it changes the responsibility of who's going to transport. It's now the Franklin County Sheriff's that will be transporting him from Illinois, and they have a specialized unit that does that. So I suspect that that was probably in the plans from the get-go.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. They've got a whole unit.
And for the people saying it, the wedding was during COVID, so things were closed. That's why it was in their home. What confused people probably about that was, I don't think people were seeing masks. But again, depending on who you were and your political affiliation, people probably didn't wear masks, depending on where they were, right? But it was during 2020, during COVID. That explains why it was in a home and not in a venue or not at a church, which is very convenient for those that are looking for clues. Someone like Dr. Michael McKee.
Unit that will work on the extradition. I think that's going to probably happen really soon. Just going backwards the other way now, David. A lot of people, grand juries are secretive. Pull back the curtain. So, how did this all play out this past week? And it seems quick to me. I mean, the arrest was just the week prior, I think. Was it very fast in terms of convening a grand jury and returning an indictment? Is this the typical amount of time? And how does it work? The COE is panicked. I'm going to forget her video, which I'm not. We're going to get to it in just one moment. The COE has quite a bit of video for us to watch tonight. I'll dive into that in a moment. She is the chief of everything, David DeVillers, a.k.a. my wife, a.k.a. former news correspondent as myself. But how does a grand jury work? Pull back the secret curtain on that. Let's make a deal.
So Franklin County grand jury is a bit different than a lot of you hear about grand jurors being in panels. Sometimes there's special grand juries. You see that in federal cases. In the federal system, they meet once a week for 6 months to a year. Sometimes they meet on a Monday, sometimes they meet on a Tuesday. There's two different grand jurors. But in Franklin County, and Jay knows this too, and correct me if it's changed since I was there, but you sit for 2 weeks and you hear every case for 2 weeks that comes in, every felony case in Franklin County. You go through, and there's a liaison officer for the particular agency, where it's Columbus Police, CPD, they will come in and they will basically say, here's the evidence we have. And then the jurors will kind of keep notes and vote whether there is probable cause to believe on the elements that were attached. So it's not that complicated. It's usually you don't have civilian witnesses. Sometimes you do. Sometimes that it's up to the particular prosecutor. They want to test the witnesses' credibility, and they may bring them in and let the grand jurors ask them questions. But for the vast majority of cases, it's simply the liaison officer explaining what evidence there is under questions from the prosecutor.
So they're talking about the prosecutor, but I'm fast forwarding because I really want to get to the point where they talk about Michael McKee's ex talking to the Tepe family.
And the jurors can ask that detective or a liaison officer, some more information. They can ask for more information, but often they don't, and they come back with a true bill, with an indictment.
Yeah, and that is the phrase, by the way, true bill, which is what they came back with, which basically means you're screwed if you're the defendant in this case, and they're going to move ahead with the charges. COE, if you're in the call right now, I have just lost all communication with your laptop, meaning all the video that the COE pulled is disappeared. I knew this was going to happen. We talked about this last week. I don't want to harp on it. I walk around with my cell phone charged at above 90% at all times. COE at about 1%. Yesterday, the Tesla was on about 1%. COE had to find a charger. She barely rolled in, and then about 25 minutes later, got a call, flat tire. It took the COE about 5 hours to get home. That's what we call Sunday in our house. But COE, if you're watching, or if you can get to your computer, we just lost all the video. But being the nimble host that I am, we'll get around it. Don't worry. And if we don't get to it today, we'll get to it tomorrow. Look at this. This is why I say we are a global phenomenon, not a show, not a podcast. 2:25 in the morning in the Kingdom of Lesotho. David DeVillers, you're a U.S. attorney, very smart man. Do you know where the Kingdom of Lesotho is?
I think it's within the borders of South Africa.
You are correct. That's why I said you're a smart man. A landlocked country within South Africa. We've got a viewer there, David DeVillers. I was watching you right now in the Kingdom of Lesotho. One day we'll all get in a plane, the four of us, and we'll do a show out of the Kingdom of Lesotho.
This is an interesting question, chat. What do the best guests think about? I hate that people don't speak proper English. What do the best guests think about the truth? Think about the truth in the saying, you can indict a ham sandwich. Let's hear what they say.
But Abby Crossing, thank you to Abby. What did the best guests think about the truth in the saying, you can indict a ham sandwich? Dave DeVillers, that's a you answer.
Yeah, he can. Yeah. I indicted someone for living in Franklin County once. It's just how it's written. It was a mistake. This is back when I was a baby prosecutor. And, it got through, and the boss said, we're not going to file this, of course, because I forgot to add elements to the offense. But again, there's no defense attorney, right? There's no challenging of the evidence. It is simply presenting enough, and it's supposed to be this way. I mean, if we had to try the case twice, all we'd be doing is grand jury indictments. We would have no time for anything else. And by the way, it's something that other countries don't have. So, we have this both in the state and federal, all over the country, in the vast majority of states. And what it really is, it's just, hey, citizens making sure that prosecutors aren't abusing, the system.
And officers.
And
officers. I mean, it's a civilian check of policemen's work. So we determined there's probable cause amongst 3 homicide detectives and a sergeant in our office. Now 9 to 12.
Yes, Nation, let me know. Jay, if you know, please let me know. But when the defense lawyer sees that there's this true bill and that a grand jury has essentially signed off on every count presented by the prosecution, what does that say to the defense attorney? Is he like, oh, geez, maybe I shouldn't take this case?
No, because the vast majority of cases that defense attorneys in state court in Franklin County get is after indictment anyway. So they're used to
these people. So
I think this is it here. Let's see what they have to say. This is going to be, I think, Michael McKee's ex-girlfriend speaking with the surviving members, or some of the surviving members of the Tepe family.
Let's see what she has to say here. And I apologize, I don't know her name. I just know that she's Rob Mislez's sister. Here's the first one.
Rob had called my mom screaming, like inconsolably screaming. And then my mom called me right away, inconsolably screaming. And then I called Rob, inconsolably. So all 3 of us are just screaming. And the first thing my mom said to me was, Spencer and Monique are dead. And I said, no, they're not dead. We saw them 4 days ago. They're not dead. We just saw them. How could they be dead? And she was like, no.
I mean, think about this for a minute. So let's set the stage. So you get a call randomly out of nowhere. You just seen them 4 days before, and someone calls you and says your sibling or whomever they were to her are both dead. Not just one, but both. And your first thought is probably what? Probably some sort of car accident is what you would think. Maybe a drunk driving accident, someone hit them. But do you think this? Oh, no, actually, no. They were both murdered in the middle of the night. And think about that for a minute. Think about what's going through your mind if you're her. You probably go into shock. You probably go into shock and you're in survival mode and you're not even thinking. Like you're just in survival mode. It doesn't register. It doesn't register for a little while. But what do you think, chat?
No, Gina, they're dead. So my first thought was like, oh my God, they got in a car crash. And then my mom, it was before like anybody, it was before, anyone was even there.
Right. See? What did I tell you? Car crash.
So then my mom was like, I don't know, your brother doesn't know, but it looks like murder. And I think the initial shock, I didn't think anything. And then I kind of sat with it for like 15, 20 minutes. And in my head, I'm like replaying every conversation. And within 15 minutes, I was like, oh my God, the ex.
So were you surprised when Columbus police arrested him?
No. I was like, thank God. We kind of knew it was coming sooner rather than later. And the police had been very tight-lipped, I will say. They've been very tight-lipped, even with the family. We didn't know much. So we only knew about an hour or two before it actually happened that it was going to happen. And when Rob called me, he was just ecstatic. He's like, it's happening soon. And we were actually driving down to Columbus for the services when I got that call, and it was just like an overwhelming wave of emotion that they got him and they got the right guy.
Jay Fulton, that's clip number one. The question here from Lisa, I guess it's fair.
And I don't know, like, personally, I'm weird with justice in the fact that unless I'm the one dishing it out, I don't feel a sense of justice like having the legal system do it for me. It's just like, it just doesn't, like, oh, they're in jail and they got sentenced. It's like, I don't know. That doesn't do much for me. But that's just me. Because at the end of the day, your loved ones are still gone. That's the part that I would be thinking about. Like, the justice of the person doesn't bring them back.
The obvious question I was going to ask, can the friends, this is family in this case, affect the trial? This is out now in the court in the public court. Your thoughts on hearing this and the possibility of affecting a future trial? Is this the kind of thing that you cringe at as a detective working investigating a case?
Not at this point. That information's out there. It's going to be out there. Everybody on this panel knows that McKee would have been looked at within the first 2 or 3 days, 2 days, without family pointing the finger at him. You do a deep dive on the victims. It's one of the first things you do. And who would have had reason to hurt these people? They're not in a high-risk lifestyle. So
I'm going to rewind it to figure out exactly who that is.
Have him going back and forth in the car being in the area. Apparently they found as Jeff said, apparently they found the gun that was used, or at least that's pretty good circumstantial evidence. My guess is they've done it through shell casings. That is, they've found the shell casing left at the scene, and the gun. Takes a little bit longer usually to do that with the bullets, but they're probably doing that as we speak as well. And if that adds up, that's tough to explain away.
Yeah, I think they use a NIBIN database to basically just recover the murder weapon is what they're saying. My state rarely uses a grand jury. Venus gal, let us know. Jeff, I was just thinking, this system that Columbus has to triangulate the shot, gunshot sounds. Does LA use that at all? Or LA is so big, but are there areas where you guys use that?
LAPD, no. The LA County sheriffs have. The data tends to suggest it really does not reduce or improve the ability to prevent or apprehend people that are engaged in violent crimes using guns. It's quite expensive to do, and there's probably better ways of spending your money. At least that's from the data that I've seen.
Yeah, and LA is so big. I mean, I guess it's tough. But this is now, so this is Rob Misla. He was on our show. He is married to Spencer Tepe's sister, Maddie.
So it's a freaking tongue twister. So Rob is married to Spencer Tepe's sister, Maddie, which means this person is who? Is this Rob is married to Spencer Tepe's sister, and is this Spencer Tepe's sister?
And this is Rob's sister speaking to local media. We've got
Rob's sister. Jesus frickin' Jiminy Crickets.
The ability to prevent or apprehend people that are engaged in violent crimes using guns. It's quite expensive to do, and there's probably better ways of spending your money. At least that's from the data that I've seen.
Yeah, and LA is so big. I mean, I guess it's tough. But this is now, so this is Rob Misla. He was on our show. He is married to Spencer Tepe's sister, Matt.
So Rob is married to Spencer Tepe's sister. And this is Rob's sister. So not a direct sibling, just kind of like a branch of the family. So not by blood, I guess, right? These would be Spencer's in-laws.
Maddie, and this is Rob's sister speaking to local media. We've got 4 different clips, but this is her. This is the family, essentially. This first one is her reacting to the...
Solidifies in your mind that that's a direction you need to go, but they can't hurt the case now. I don't think. And some people want to express their grief. Some people will not respond to the media. That's an individual family member thing, but they can't hurt by talking about it.
Yes, there is a difference between justice and revenge. Revenge is to overcompensate more. Justice is just what is supposed to be fair. But again, like for me personally, justice, revenge, like if someone harmed me, I'd probably rather get revenge. Like justice wouldn't seem to be, just wouldn't cut it to me. And if I'm not even dishing out the justice myself, that doesn't do anything for me. Like that's just how I see it.
I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, you know, and Joel, she didn't really release any information. Like when I was listening to it, if I was the person interviewing them, and she said, oh my gosh, I thought it was, automatically the ex. The question is, well, why? She didn't elaborate about go into all these various things that may speak to some of the evidence that they actually have relative to the things they may put on it on trial. But it was very surface in what she said. I mean, she didn't release anything.
It's a weird way for them to phrase it, right? So it's Rob's sister, and Rob is married to Spencer's sister. So it's Spencer's sister's sister-in-law.
Information that was critical at all.
Good point. Now, for those who don't know, Jeff was on the cusp of playing professional hockey for the Hartford Whalers, but we're getting a couple of questions in the chat because of your baritone voice, Jeff went into. They want to know if you ever pursued singing. Were you ever a singer?
No.
That's a no. He was a lieutenant. He was maybe singing to his partner, but I don't know. But
I sing in the shower.
Yeah, in the shower. David DeVillers, can the 4 smart men, I'll say 3, now give their opinions on how the sicko enters the house, and if ever known, we'll see who's right. We don't know. They say that there was no breaking and entry here, but David, how important is this to the case to know how do police know already, in your opinion? How important is it to the case to understand how he gained entry?
That's the biggest question I have, right? Because this is, I believe, 4 o'clock in the morning or somewhere about.
Yeah, between.
Even if you know somebody, I mean, if I know Jade for 30 years, but if he knock on my door at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm not letting him in.
Come on, Dave.
Yeah, but that's for other reasons. But I do think that, that's kind of the question, right? And it's possible, people do strange things, and I don't know what the relationship was. And maybe there's, I don't know who answered the door. I don't know if I'm assuming the door was locked, but yeah, there was no break-in. Now, as far as the 2 specifications are concerned, one's prior calc and design or premeditated, probably won't affect that.
So apparently, YouTube is asking folks, is this video fresh and timely? I think it is fresh and timely. So fresh and so clean.
But did he forcing entry or remaining on the property, without the permission of the individuals, could be burglary, right? It's a dwelling. So I probably not too much, and certainly I think that you could assume by killing people and committing a felony, that being murder, is still burglary because you don't have permission to be on the property, to kill somebody. But it's a big question. Like that's the question that I think I've been asking myself since I've read about this.
Yeah, Jay Fulton, we talked about it on one of the shows. I've got a friend, Gavin Fish, who does investigative reporting. He used a magnet. Apparently, there's some kind of system with a magnet where you can get into those locks. But have you given it any more thought yourself? Are you curious? Is this a big question for you?
Well, I would base some of my thoughts on the indictment. I think that the officers or the detectives that did the investigation and presented the case to grand jury were able to present evidence or probable cause to believe that he committed this burglary, and that being that I'm going to, since there was no force, I would say that he somehow defeated the electronic lock. And when you think back to how much time this McKee put into the pre-planning of this event, I don't know. I'm not familiar with digital locks, but if there is a lock, and we've talked about this before, there is a way to defeat that lock, whether it be a key lock or a digital lock, whether it's magnets, whether it's copying the code.
Call me old-fashioned. I'd prefer bolt and key. These smart locks, to me, it's easier to be hacked, in my opinion. Old-fashioned bolt and lock and key. That's what I like.
Whether it's an electronic device that overrides, I'm comfortable with the thought somehow he defeated the locking mechanism, and with the amount of intelligence this guy has and the amount of time that he spent towards this, apparently, that would have been maybe something they have evidence of him doing, and that would be my thought on this. So I think when it does come out in court, we'll find out exactly how he defeated that lock.
I like that. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
There's a lot of technology out there. Like we've seen these residential burglaries as a high-profile celebrities and athletes. Here in Ohio, we had Joe Burrow's house when he was up playing a football game on a Sunday. His home was burglarized. And what's being used by these burglary rings is this technology where it's signal jammers. It doesn't matter how good of a system you have as far as security; those signal jammers shut everything down, and then they're able to get in without being notified to the security company or police department or anything like that. And they oftentimes can get in relatively easily without having any real physical evidence of a forced entry, because they're not defeating a security system. So that's something that you can just buy on the internet. You can go online and buy the device.
Yes, Ella, when I used to do political polling in Pennsylvania, especially in the more rural areas, you'd see a lot of signs protected by Second Amendment security, or if you want to meet your maker or find out if there is one, break in here, or my dog can go to the fence in freaking this many seconds. Can you? And I'd be like, wow, Pennsylvania is such a friendly place.
Can jam any system. So people that think that their systems are very expensive and very good, they're very easy to defeat.
Jeff makes a good point. I'd be really curious to see, and I'm sure they are looking at his Google searches, McKee's Google searches. Maybe there's stuff on silencers. Maybe there's stuff on unlocking.
I'm sure they're going to find stuff like that, and I'm sure they're going to find. This guy was not very good about secreting evidence, so I think they'll find evidence of. They found evidence of the firearm. They'll be able to track that purchase. Maybe he bought that firearm in a state that also, hey, while you're buying a threaded barreled semi-automatic handgun, we sell the suppressor too, and they're gonna. I think they'll come to court with that evidence.
Yeah, I mean, but Jay, it's a given that they're also going to do.
And I've seen that they'll say, "Beware of the dog, but watch out for the owner." The cat's a little shady as fuck. Also, they'll say. I've seen that one too.
Do like these digital forensic searches, and his possibility he was Googling something like this. How about this, Jay? Do you ascribe to this? from Real Dreamscape. My grandfathers are always the smartest people out there, used to say, and grandmothers, locks only keep out honest people. In other words, if somebody wants to find a way in, they will. Do you ascribe to that as well?
I do. I think my grandfather said the same thing. He was a farmer, and his fences only keep the honest people out and the cows in was one of his things. So, but they're absolutely right. And my security system.
Now, the Buddhists have a saying, which I think has some wisdom in it. The way to control a cow is to give it a large pen. Meaning what? The more someone tries to be controlled, the less they will do as you say and be controlled. But if you give a cow a large pen and you give it more freedom, often they will control themselves. So just something to think about there.
He's a 105-pound, 6-year-old German Shepherd, and you can have at it if you like. That's a harder system to defeat, I believe. But they're correct. I mean, if somebody has a desire to get in, like we pointed out in a previous episode, they did burglarize the Louvre. And so there's a way, there's a will, there's a way.
Jeff, let me I love to digress. I get these Facebook ads. I was talking to a dad. I had to go to a obligatory birthday party today for my 6-year-old, and my daughter was invited as well. And I'm sitting there, we talk about stuff and talking about the amount of money we spend on stupid crap on Facebook pop-up ads. And the other day, won't tell you what it is. It's not a weapon. I mean, it is a weapon. It's not a gun. It's not a knife. But there's a lot of road rage here in Miami. And, it's always in the back of my mind. Like, is someone going to come charging at me one day? A lot of crazy people out there in the streets. Any advice? If someone was ever to come and try to attack you while you're in your car, what do you do, Jeff Weninger? Any simple advice?
Good question. So if you're about to be attacked in your car, what do you do? Several of these people are former law enforcement officers. Let's see what they say.
If you're in your car, remain in your car and leave the area.
What I bought may or may not have been a baton stick that it's like an antenna that retracts and whatever. But I'm like, I got to have something in case some lunatic comes at me. Bad idea? Am I going to get killed?
Well, that's a personal decision. Reality is my thing is I try to be as low profile and as avoid conflict as much as I can. So if I can get away, yeah. But at the end of the
So chat, who's your favorite bear? Baloo the bear from Jungle Book, Yogi Bear stealing picnic baskets, or Winnie the Pooh? He's technically a bear too. So 1, Baloo the bear, 2, Yogi Bear, 3, Winnie the Pooh. Let's see what you got in the chat.
day, if you're in a scenario where your back's against the wall and you have to defend yourself, you have to make sure that you have something that you're comfortable utilizing and that you're competent with, and that you'll be able to protect yourself or your family members, because it is kind of crazy out there these days.
Yeah, I told the COE, she's like, you're an idiot. She's like, how much did that cost? I'm like, don't worry about it. She's like, you're an idiot. So whatever. One of these days I'll man up and learn.
Now, this bear I forgot. The bear from Ted, the cartoon with Marky Wahlberg. I guess that's 4. The 4th is Ted.
Had actually, when Weninger comes down, he'll take me to the firing range. I'll learn how to shoot a gun.
First thing you can do is go to the gym. You look fit.
Oh my goodness. How could I forget Smokey the bear, living? Only you can protect against forest fires.
You look like you can handle yourself. It's about command and control. It's people like in law enforcement, they're always looking you up and down. I mean, Jay will tell you, you go out and answer any radio call, people are looking you up and down. They're figuring out what they're going to do. Are they going to comply? Are they going to flee? Or are they going to fight? And it has a lot to do with how you carry yourself and how you look. And,
interesting.
Victims are often identified because they carry themselves in a meek manner. If you carry yourself with confidence and you look fit, you look like you can take care of yourself, you're less likely to be victimized.
Jay Fulton, totally unrelated again, but I used to work with Dan Abrams. He hosts a show called Live PD on Patrol. And this weekend, I never watch it, but I happened to watch this weekend. And Toledo, Ohio police were in pursuit of a snowmobile on the median of a road. Have you ever pursued a snowmobile before?
No, I I got out of that soon enough. I didn't pursue many things. I was in the plain clothes for most of my career. I didn't like driving fast particularly. That was not appealing to me.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy. All right, so this is Rob Mislez's sister again. Someone said her name is Gina, so I'm going to go with that. And here she is talking about, I think, what the family knew. Let's watch this.
She talked to you about her marriage to Michael McKee.
Yes. Yes.
Do you mind sharing what she told you?
Yeah, and there not recently, not the first few times I saw her, but at the beginning, she never called.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy.
Let me get this question correct. Good pull by George there.
All right, so this is Rob Mislez's sister again. Someone said her name is Gina, so I'm going to go with that. And here she is talking about, I think, what the family knew. Let's watch this.
She talked to you about her marriage to Michael McKee.
Yes. Yes.
So she talked to the person's Michael McKee's or to Monique about the marriage to Michael.
Do you mind sharing what she told you?
Yeah, and there not recently, not the first few times I saw her, but at the beginning, she never called. I didn't even know his name. She never said Michael. She said my ex. She said he was bad. She said abusive. I don't think she ever said physically. I don't know, but I do know she would say quite a bit. Very verbally, mentally abusive, and I don't think I ever got the impression that she was afraid of him. I got the impression that she hated him and that she knew things were bad there. And I don't think it ever fully left her mind, which I don't like to say that. And, but yeah, I don't think.
So what does that speak to? It speaks to the hold a trauma bond can have over you. If you don't go to something like EMDR, brain spotting, or some other trauma therapy, it can linger. Why can it linger? CPTSD. The CPTSD doesn't go away on its own. Now, part of this is going no contact. And I would say, again, what happened to Monique and Spencer here is awful. But I would caution people, while it's understandable to hate the ex, the problem with it is it's a stage of healing, but you don't want to stay in the hatred phase. You want to get to the indifference phase with it, where it's like that you don't feel one way or the other. Why do I say that? Because to a narcissist, your hate gives them fuel. Why does it give them fuel? Because love is not the opposite of hate. The opposite of love is indifference. Indifference doesn't give them fuel. But hate, it goes to show, oh, you care. Or like there's a part of you that feels something. And they like having that control over your emotional state. So granted, you do have to feel it to heal it. And anger is a totally normal part of healing. My suggestion would be you don't want to stay there, though. You want to move through.
She ever thought that he was, I don't think that, I don't, that sounds bad. I don't think anyone thought that this was going to happen. I also don't think that she ever thought he would leave her alone for the rest of her life.
So I think a big question that a lot of people have is they divorced in 2017. It's been a long time. Had he been contacting her or following her in Columbus since then that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, and not that most people that I've talked to are aware of. But he was that I don't know. He's just that sneaky kind of sociopathic smart that I had heard a few rumors. I'm not sure I should say exactly what, but things that he had said to people surrounding her. But I hadn't heard any definite things of, he was actually anything definite, I should say. Yes.
Do you have any idea why now, after all of these years, that he's accused of doing this heinous act?
I mean, the answer to this question is there's not an answer. The answer really just is he lost control and he nurtured the resentment and bitterness and enviousness. That's my thought. But let's see what she says.
Sorry. I think it's just because everything you see the wedding video, everything that people see is who they really were. And they were so perfect and they were so wonderful. And I think he couldn't live with it. I think he could not fathom her happiness. And she was so happy. Her kids were just playing with my kids and everything was perfect and wonderful. And you don't like to say perfect because nobody's perfect, but like.
And I'll say this, like I said before, if Michael saw the wedding video, which it's likely he did, that does probably add fuel to the fire. I'm not going to call that a trigger. The losing control is the only trigger that's needed. But seeing that video isn't going to help. Like it's not going to help him to let go of his resentment, bitterness, enviousness. If anything, it's going to make all of those things worse. Because he's going to say, oh my God, you can't be happy without me. I'd have to ruin it for you.
To the naked eye, they were.
Man, that is devastating to hear. Jay Fulton, aside from the obvious emotion there and the human perspective, again, some of the things that she tells us here is that she didn't particularly think he was like this obsessive, compulsive guy trying to like stalk her. That it was more that she just kind of quote unquote hated him.
So that's a good thing to go over, whatever. So I'll put it up here. For her to believe that he would never leave her alone, I think there has to be some reason for her to believe that. I think the only reason that's needed is if you've ever been in a trauma bond with a narcissist or a psychopath, they really just can't get over it if they lose control. And they continually circle back, years later, decades later. And it's like they're just obsessed that you got out. You breaking up with them in particular. And in this case, Monique did leave Michael. He didn't get the upper hand on that. To a narcissistic person, at the very least, if they can break up with you, they can at least say to themselves, well, I was in control of the breakup. But if they leave you first, the narcissist does not like that one bit because now they got the better of you. And that's exactly how they see it. They see it as kind of like a game. Like the person who does the breaking up is the person with more power and control. But in that situation, as we went over, Monique's family came in there while Michael was at work and they snuck her out. She got out and she got the better of Michael. Another reason why he wanted to kind of even the score, so to speak, because she got the better of him in the breakup. Now, a normal person would say, well, that's life. You move on. But not people like that. Not true narcissists, not psychopaths. That's something they can never forget. And we see that play out in politics all the time, in business, the Machiavellian games. They hold on to a grudge.
And she said she didn't think that he was following, at least not in the weeks leading up to the murder. She calls him a sneaky sociopath. And then one of the pieces of video, I see the COEs here, that we have is from an ex-girlfriend, which is very interesting because she kind of describes him the same way. The ex-girlfriend says he's just not that he's got this exterior wall, that he had a nice demeanor. He was pleasant, but she said she could never get close to him, that he had this sort of distant feeling about him and she could never develop an emotional relationship. But from your perspective as an investigator, does anything here stand out to you? Is this the type of interview that you want to get in the interview room?
Absolutely. This and every other person that was part of their life is going to point toward what pretty universally being described as
the thing in June, Mystical, was nothing though. Like that was just an error. Nothing got sent to Michael like that. it just looks that way in the court records, but no one else saw it. The only people who see it are people who are looking at those court records.
This abusive or sadistic type behavior, whether it's mental anguish that he's causing her or verbal abuse. I mean, I don't know that's they've documented or found any documentation of past physical abuse between the two, but McKee's demeanor and how the victims were impacted by it, that's certainly stuff that you're going to want to get in the investigative file. I think the attorneys would find that useful at some point. They will determine who they use as witnesses, and the judge will determine what witnesses can testify to. That's down the road, but you want to close all those avenues, if not just to keep the defense attorney from saying you did a cursory investigation. It wasn't thorough. So there's all kinds of reasons you follow up with witnesses, but the main one is so that you can stand on the fact that you did a complete and thorough investigation.
Some of the most charming men I've ever met have had a very opposite and dark side to them. I'm sure that is true of both sexes, that you just never really know who a person is until you get to know them. Dave DeVillers, one of the aspects of this investigation that is key is how they basically caught him. And I see that, COE. Thank you. And that is using his vehicle, coming into this part of Columbus, tracking him to Rockford, Illinois. So how do prosecutors weave in, and then we'll get back to some of this video, but how do prosecutors weave in?
So Mystic, Jared, can you please find the information relating to the June court order between McKee and Monique? Why did they file something in June? They didn't file anything. It was just a clerical error that made it look like something was filed. Like they opened it up, but it wasn't anything Monique or Michael or anyone did. It was just an error so now it looks like something happened, but nothing really happened.
Surveillance footage, like they apparently have, into a narrative, without, I guess, overplaying it. How key is that evidence in your opinion?
It is. The car being there is the big one, right? We've all seen the video of the individual walking down the street. That isn't probably your smoking gun, but the car is, right? And how that was found, and I'm guessing it's a plate reader of some sort, and or surveillance with the type of car and the license plate, and more importantly, the plate readers, the traveling, right, coming from Illinois through Indiana to Ohio. There's gonna be a bunch of time, date, stamp plate readers.
And again, if there was any SA to a corpse, we haven't heard it. I kind of suspect we might have heard it if it was a thing. But I mean, that being said, I'm glad it doesn't appear to be a thing as of now.
All through the highway, him getting here. So that's even kind of, that goes off with the prior captain design, right? So I think that's the most important thing to deal with.
Okay, let's switch gears here a little bit. This woman is allegedly Michael David McKee's ex-girlfriend. She did a TikTok video. It has since been taken down, but the COE I should be scared. She can hack into anything and find whatever she needs at all times. This is her. Don't have a name on her. And then we'll get a take from Jeff and Jay, the investigators, because this is now building up an offenderology. The offender here in this case, we're getting an idea of who this person is. Let's take a look here.
Hey, so crazy story time. So last Sunday, I get a text message from an old coworker that linked this article about a Michael David McKee, and my heart dropped because that's one of my ex-boyfriends, which is pretty insane. I was
I don't know how I think about this. Just like her energy, period. I would not be surprised if she was kind of trying to pull a fast one here for likes and views. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that's what it is, but that's kind of like a vibe that I get. Like, I don't know. I feel like if that was truly your ex-boyfriend, maybe a little more like scared or a little more shook. I don't know. Maybe I'm judging a little too harshly. Let's go on.
Floored. So just wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about the whole situation. So I dated him around the end of 2017 through a good chunk of 2018, I think. So what I remember of him is he was just like a nice guy. Like, he was quiet, introverted, which there's nothing wrong with that. He was a general surgery resident at the time where I was doing my residency as well. And he was really nice. Like, there was no issues with him. He was always kind and respectful with me. I've been over his house. It's pretty crazy that you never know someone. But long story short, he did tell me a little bit about his divorce at the time. So, and again, I want to preface this with, this is his side of the story and what he spoke to me. This is not truth. This is obviously very biased. But what he told me was that one day he came home from residency and that Monique had vanished. Like, she took everything. She left the house completely empty and also took their dog. He was just left very stunned because he didn't see this coming, and he was like completely devastated.
I'm going to stop it there. That's about halfway through. Jeff Weninger, this is fascinating to me. Talks about how he's nice but introverted. Then she emphasizes really nice, that she's been to his house. You never know the house that he's been in. And then she's talking about.
So what she's speaking to is the fact that Monique left him while he was at work, and she had her family help him. Her family help her to get out. Why would Monique think that? Because she knew he was abusive. And he had threatened to kill her several times. And so that's a way to leave safely, because leaving is a very dangerous time. And of course, as we found out, 8 years to 9 years later can also be a very dangerous time.
And, I'm taking this all at face value, that she is in fact the ex-girlfriend. She's talking about how he confides in her that one day basically came home, the dog was gone, and the house was cleared out. That could certainly be a motive here, a lingering motive, that he wanted to exact some sort of revenge. What do you hear with your investigative ears?
Well, with my ears, I can't just listen to one thing without thinking of what I've heard other people say. And it goes back to the family member that we listened to prior to this former girlfriend, where she was very measured. And she said, he was kind of, I don't know if she used the word creepy or whatever. But she didn't elaborate what she meant by that, or what made her draw that conclusion. She talked about how Monique hated him. And we have to look at the fact that the marriage lasted 7 months. And apparently they were happy prior to the marriage. Now, they moved after being married to Virginia, where he was doing his residency, and she was moved away from her family, where she may be very close to them. She may have felt isolated. And then that may have been, when we know the cycle of violence, with the utilization of isolation, and he may have then escalated how he used manipulation or, psychological abuse, or that type of a thing. But for her to use those terms where she hated him, I mean, perhaps he has a real dark side that she stumbled onto. And for her to just pack everything up and leave, that speaks volumes to what she knew about him, to the point where she would actually hate him up to the day that she was killed. And that she would express that to family members. It's when I piece this all together, it just makes me think, like I said, there's got to be a real dark side to this guy, and that it's not unusual for somebody to have this exterior facade of being, very kind and nice and thoughtful, when at the same time they've got this real dark side to them. And it may not have been physically abusive, but I tend to think that there may be something about him that Monique found out, and that was a game changer in the marriage. And she was going to run from that. And that is what she did. And it's kind of interesting. It's when that.
And that is the thing about Michael McKee, right? This is an attractive woman. I mean, she's on par with the attractiveness of Monique. It's like, Why were you so caught up on Monique? Why? Like, there's plenty of fish in the sea. There was something about it, right? Where, for whatever reason, with his ego and whatever, it was just something that he couldn't process it. Couldn't process being left like that. Unacceptable to be left. But something specifically about Monique as well, right? Because presumably this relationship with her ended at a point, right? So, but this woman didn't have the same, as far as we know, experience. But I don't know, maybe I'm talking out of turn here. Let's see.
Family member, she didn't elaborate. It was almost like she was embarrassed to speak about what she knew. I don't know if Jay, you kind of picked up on that, but she just kind of stayed away from it. And so I don't just listen to one thing. I kind of putting everything together that I know or that I believe to be true in this case.
Yeah, that's interesting though. I mean, the fact that you think she was running away from one big thing, that could be very key to this and understanding the whole situation. I think that's really interesting. Shout out to Tammy Allen here for becoming a subscriber. Jay, I'll have you weigh in, but let me play this part first. I'm going to have David weigh in on this as well in terms of a potential witness at a potential trial here.
So again, this is his side of the story, his thing. Not even sure if it's truth, but I do remember him saying that to me. He also, another thing that I remember is that he didn't really talk about his parents. He did tell me he was adopted by an older couple, and he just, like, they were good parents, but he just never talked about them. He never talked to them. I would call my mom like every day. We have a great relationship, but he was just much.
Well, because we know, because of trust and transparency, he cut off his parents. He went no contact with his parents. We don't know why, but that's what we did learn.
More reserved. He never really, when I asked him more, he just didn't really want to talk about it. So I kind of left it at that. This is him. This is us celebrating New Year's with a bunch of my friends and family. And this is me right here. And that's him, which is crazy. He also has been to my family home. That's him right there. This is me. And my.
Okay. There he is. There's her. We're close to this other woman here and this other woman.
Family members. But it's honestly shocking, and I'm grateful that the Lord protected me from moving forward in that relationship. The reason why it ended was I honestly wasn't feeling it. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he was just kind of boring. And he was very much like kind of surface level. There was no, like, I couldn't go deep with him. And yeah, that's why I couldn't form like a deep connection with him because of that. Like, I think he had a wall up where he just like could not go deep with like any conversations really. So that's why it ended. And I moved up north, and the long distance thing didn't work out either. I'm praying for Monique and the Tepe family and their children. But
why would long distance even be a thing if you broke up with him? How long was this relationship?
I don't know. I'm shocked.
Long enough to be meeting whoever those people were. But I don't know. Did they say how long it was? I don't think they said.
Jay Fulton, I think anybody that was in proximity of this guy in any kind of relationship is going to be shocked and disturbed. Your takeaway from this interview? I mean, she also adds that he was adopted by an older couple, wasn't really close at all. We've heard that he was estranged, but your takeaway?
Yeah, you know, I don't know that she'll make much of a witness for the state, but she could be presented as a girlfriend that Mr. McKee did not commit homicide against if the defense wanted to go that route. She made a lot of that about herself, which I guess when you've dated somebody that's accused of this, that's one way you can go with it. I think she found the same things maybe that Monique found. Maybe she didn't get close enough where he used those as a cudgel against her, but clearly the way Monique got out of that relationship, this guy was devastated by that.
So Monique's and Michael's relationship officially ended in 2017, but in reality, they moved out 7 months after. So that was more like, is it 2015 or 16? So this is a year or two after that. And all things considering, she's very lucky. Very lucky that she didn't get sucked in further and get into a trauma bond with him. From her description there, it doesn't really seem like that's what happened. It just seems like she wasn't that into him and then left. That's the impression I got. But into him enough to have those pictures with family. So interesting.
I mean, and McKee was insulted, and that's what he's hung on to. And he's hung on to that through this relationship with the young lady we just heard from. So I think as an investigator, I mean, you see the domestic angle as being a motive, and you let the attorneys argue the motive. What we're so excited about as investigators, as detectives on this case, is the evidence that we've got. If the firearm, they're going to do an ATF trace on that firearm, and they're going to, in all likelihood, find that Mr. McKee purchased this firearm from somewhere. And they're going to have these internet searches where he's either map quested the route, he's researched electronic locks. And so this people thing is great. You know, I think Dave can tell you, you never know what a witness is going to say up on the stand, but you generally do know what the scientists are going to say, the people that made the Nibin match, the people that have identified the DNA, if there is that on.
Yeah, I'll rewind them. I mean, we'll replay the whole segment because I think it's worth going over again. Because I think what is not said is very telling. And we didn't hear much of the dark side, as the commenter said. So here it is. And remember, pay attention to what you don't hear.
Here in this case, we're getting an idea of who this person is. Let's take a look here.
Hey, so crazy story time. So last Sunday, I get a text message from an old coworker that linked this article about a Michael David McKee, and my heart dropped because that's one of my ex-boyfriends, which is pretty insane. I was floored. So just wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about the whole situation. So I dated him around the end of 2017 through a good chunk of 2018, I think.
Okay, so 2017 to a good chunk of 2018. What's a good chunk? That could mean anything. It can mean 3 months, 9 months, 6 months.
So what I remember of him is he was just like a nice guy. Like he was quiet, introverted, which there's nothing wrong with that. He was a general surgery resident at the time where I was doing my residency as well. And he was really nice. Like there was no issues with him. He was always kind and respectful with me. I've been over his house. It's pretty crazy that you never know someone.
Pretty kind and respectful with me. So what's the lesson here? That, okay, you think you know somebody for going into 2017 into a good chunk of 2018, but their mask might not slip in that entire time. It's good to know. And that he was nice and respectful. And it sounds like he wasn't abusive towards her at all. That's what it sounds like.
But long story short, he did tell me a little bit about his divorce at the time. So, and again, I want to preface this with, this is his side of the story and what he spoke to me. This is not truth. This is obviously very biased. But what he told me was that one day he came home from residency and that Monique had vanished. Like she took everything. She left the house completely empty. And
this is interesting too, right? How a narcissist would frame the story of Monique escaping the situation. So he would probably say, my ex abandoned me or ghosted me or picked up everything we owned and just left me high and dry. They would paint it in a way that they're going to be the victim, almost guaranteed. But we know, especially considering how it ended, yes, how it ended makes it harder to learn from. But when you're in it, it's like, okay, we know she was just doing what was best for her own safety. For her own safety, it was best for her to do that while he was at work/residency. We know that. But that's not how he's going to frame it. That's not how he's going to frame it to her. And I would wonder if he talked trash about Monique to her. He might have, but I don't think, we'll see what she says.
Also took their dog. He was just left very stunned because he didn't see this coming. And
That's a better bit. She took the dog. Wow. Oh, she stole my dog. Again, just another way to kind of play the victim routine there. Never mind the fact that he was emotionally abusing her. Never mind the fact that he had threatened to kill her multiple times. Of course, you're not going to mention that part of the story, right?
he was like completely devastated.
I'm going to stop it there. That's about halfway through. Jeff Weninger, this is fascinating to me. Talks about how he's nice but introverted. Then she emphasizes really nice that she's been to his house. You never know the house that he's been in. And then she's talking about, I'm taking this all at face value, that she is in fact the ex-girlfriend. She's talking about how he confides in her. But let me play this part first. I'm going to have.
And correct, Tina. That's how a lot of people have to leave their abusive partners, because they have to be safe for the very reason that for what happened in this situation. Yeah, and we went over that. We went over that with about the trust and transparency video.
David weigh in on this as well in terms of a potential witness at a potential trial here.
So again, this is his side of the story, his thing. Not even sure if it's truth, but I do remember him saying that to me. He also, another thing that I remember is that he didn't really talk about his parents. He did tell me he was adopted by an older couple, and he just, like, they were good parents, but he just never talked about them. He never talked to them. I would call my mom like every day. We have a great relationship, but he was just much more reserved. He never really, when I asked him more, he just didn't really want to talk about it. So I kind of left it at that. This is him. This is us celebrating New Year's with a bunch of my friends and family. And this is me right here. And that's him, which is crazy. He also has been to my family home. That's him right there. This is me. And
so these are the pictures for those who are asking. There's that picture and this picture here.
My family members. But it's honestly shocking, and I'm grateful that the Lord protected me from moving forward in that relationship. The reason why it ended was I honestly wasn't feeling it. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he was just kind of boring. And he was very much like kind of surface level. There was no, like, I couldn't go deep with him. And yeah, that's why I couldn't form like a deep connection with him because of that. Like, I think he had a wall up where he just like could not go deep with like any conversations really. So that's why
And remember, don't mistake a narcissist's intensity and emotionally immature reactions for, oh, they must feel so deeply. No. Definitely not. They are shallow as a pond or a puddle. But it's really just a hypersensitivity to criticism and loss of control that it can make it appear like they're really feeling deeply. But that is not really the right way to frame it.
Ended, and I moved up north, and the long distance thing didn't work out either. I'm praying for Monique and the Tepe family and their children, but I don't know. I'm shocked.
Jay Fulton, I think anybody that was in proximity of this guy in any kind of relationship.
So Brenda asks, would Michael have felt the same way if, I guess, Monique wasn't happy? I think it would have given him a little more satisfaction if Monique wasn't happy. But the fact that she was happy and then making those wedding videos, a little more salt in the wound, adds to the fact of losing control. And it also diminishes him more too. Like, it's one thing if she's miserable, he can say to himself, well, of course she's miserable. She left me and I'm the best. But when she leaves and then finds happiness somewhere else, it's a double whammy. Like, oh shit, I lost control. And it's proving that I'm not that great. And they would not even want to think of that, right? That can't be what it is. But that can trigger that rage, though, because what else is it? Like, they're not going to think, well, we just weren't compatible. Nah, that's not really how narcissists are going to think.
Is going to be shocked and disturbed. your takeaway from this interview. I mean, she also adds that he was adopted by an older couple, wasn't really close at all. We've heard that he was estranged, but your takeaway.
Yeah, I don't know that she'll make much of a witness for the state, but she could be presented as a girlfriend that Mr. McKee did not commit homicide against if the defense wanted to go that route. She made a lot of that about herself, which I guess when you've dated somebody that's accused of this, that's one way you can go with it. I think she found the same things maybe that Monique found. Maybe she didn't get close enough where he used those as a cudgel against her, but clearly the way Monique got out of that relationship, this guy was devastated by that. I mean, and McKee was insulted, and that's what he's hung on to. And he's hung on to that through this relationship with the young lady we just heard from. So I think as an investigator, I mean, you see the domestic angle as being a motive, and you let the attorneys argue the motive. What we're so excited about as investigators, as detectives on this case, is the evidence that we've got. If the firearm, they're going to do an ATF trace on that firearm, and they're going to, in all likelihood, find that Mr. McKee purchased this firearm from somewhere. And they're going to have these internet searches where he's either MapQuested the route, he's researched electronic locks, and so this people thing is great. I think Dave can tell you, you never know what a witness is going to say up on the stand, but you generally do know what the scientists are going to say, the people that made the Nibin match, the people that have identified the DNA, if there is that on the firearm. These are the kind of witnesses that are safe to put on the stand and that are going to make for successful prosecution. So I think anybody that's ever known this guy's probably got a story they can come forward and say about a time he was weird or a time he helped them out. And, this is their 5 minutes.
Yeah. And so anyone else he's dated, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a similar video. I mean, that video wasn't very deep, and she didn't mention him being abusive at all. But it's just interesting to note, right? That also is something that happens too. Yeah. They don't abuse everybody. They only abuse who their targets are. And sometimes someone doesn't ever get to be their target, even in an intimate relationship, if it doesn't last long enough. So a lot of things to consider here. It's also why a lot of people don't believe you about the narcissist. Could you imagine if this woman is listening to Monique talk about Michael and oh, he threatened to kill me and he's emotionally abusive. And then she's like, nah, that wasn't my experience. He was a nice, respectful guy. And then Monique's like, what the fuck? You're going to invalidate her, but she's telling her experience, right? This other woman's telling her experience with Michael. But it's one of the reasons people might not believe you about the narcissist. So things to pay attention to.
Because somebody they knew is accused of this horrendous crime, but as detectives, we'll stick with the evidence that can't be refuted in court.
Yeah, that sounds rational from an investigator's point of view. Maya Muhammad here. I got 3 questions for David DeVillers. If you're just joining, a first-time best guest, former U.S. attorney in the great state of Ohio, I think in the Southern District of Ohio. Is that right?
Correct.
Correct. Again, question number 1, would you ever call this person as a witness, this ex-girlfriend, basically to have her say exactly what she just did, which is he was nice, he was introverted, he was weird, I couldn't, develop a relationship with him, yada, yada, yada. Is she worth the call?
No. As Jay said, keep it simple. You got a strong case, keep with it. Character evidence is very difficult to get in. It's also risky. You don't want to risk an appeal for something that's really unnecessary. His prior relationship with Monique is definitely relevant, but his relationship with anybody else really isn't legally relevant.
Would a defense attorney hop on this to say, look, Here's a woman who says he was just weird. He never tried anything. He didn't do anything. He was never scary. He was just weird.
I would hope so if I was a prosecutor, because you'd have a lot of fun with that. They're literally presenting people he didn't kill. That's their defense. It'd be a great closing argument.
Yeah.
It stinks, reeks of desperation.
Yeah. Here's a question from Maya Muhammad. Any chance he might plead guilty when more evidence comes up and no one will ever know, just like the killer of the Ohio students? Do you see a scenario where he just says, no, Moss, I did this, and just charge me and sentence me?
If the death penalty is on the table, maybe. Other than that, like, what's he got to lose to go to trial? I mean, if the offer is 2 aggravated murders with life tail, why not go to trial?
Here, I actually
Especially
lied.
if you're a sociopath, right? Especially if you're somebody they're accusing that he is, and he just cares about himself. That's the kind of guy that goes to trial.
Now there's 2 left questions left. Why are they not charging him with child endangerment? He left 2 little kids alone. Is that a charge that we could see?
Yes, that's certainly a charge they could see, but that's just like the icing on the cake in terms of the charges of all the things.
If you knew they were there, yeah, you could. But again, there's overkill, right? Like Jay was saying, keep it focused. He's going to die in prison if you convict him of these things. No matter how many other counts you put on him, why not just keep it as simple as possible?
Final question for you for right now, and we'll wrap in just a moment or two. I always get nervous with first-time best guests of being careful with their time. These guys are all busy. Motive. I mean, you don't need it in a criminal trial, but how important is it for the prosecution here to detail a motive, either in opening statements, closing arguments, etc.?
Extremely, and especially in a case like this, right? Again, it's strong circumstantial. So you need motivation for why he did this. So that it's not an element of the offense, and the juror will be instructed, but it's not an element of the offense, but it's always relevant and always extremely relevant.
Real quick, I'm getting back to Jeff. We uncovered, or the Daily Mirror uncovered it, and I found this. He had a Bumble profile. This is his photo, and he looks much different. Michael at 32, so this is like 7.
Oh my goodness. Could you imagine you're scrolling through Bumble and his stuff comes up? Look at that, though. He's freaking catfishing people with this.
Years ago, he physically looks much different to me. He looks smaller, leaner, for sure. This is the bio he had on. Lucky to have work I find meaningful and increase free time.
So Michael McKee's bio. See if there's any red flags in here. Lucky to have the Ohio State University vascular surgeon. Lucky to have work I find meaningful and increased free time for new things. Currently trying hot yoga. Way less flexible than I recall. Planning trip itineraries to finally make use of global entry. And hopped on an electric motorcycle. Haven't died yet. 6'2", active, socially, want someday. Again, just like as another guy, I think to myself, why are you such an idiot? Like you're gonna let this woman do this to you. Like she really can move on. Like as a man to man, like that's what a man needed to tell him. Like, dude, like just get the fuck over it. That's what he needed to hear. But of course, with pathological personalities, that would go in one ear and out the other ear anyway. But you never know. I highly doubt this guy had good, close male friends.
For new things, currently trying hot yoga, way less flexible than I recall, planning trip itineraries to finally make use of global entry, and hopped on an electric motorcycle, have not died yet. No word of murder in here. So then we got that. We got the Bumble bio. We've got this too. I've cycled from the Pacific to the Atlantic. Jeff Weninger, I mean, this is all interesting, right? It gives us a picture of this guy. But again, I hate to hammer this home. How important or not important is this for you putting a case together?
Well, here's the thing, though. Let's do some context clues here. It said his age was 32. he's 39. Right? Did I not see that correctly? It said his age was 32. Yeah, 32. So is this from 7 years ago? Because he's 39 now.
Not important is this for you, putting a case together?
Oh, I don't find it to be important really at all. I mean, it's just kind of reflects the generation of men and women of these times. I mean, how many people are meeting their future wives on the internet? It's quite frequent and not unheard of. You know, a lot of people are very busy. They don't have time to do traditional dating, so they try to narrow things down and you know, shorten the time it takes to find a potential partner, and use all these different sites and apps. So you know, I don't glean anything from it relative to the prosecution of this being relevant at all.
And Jeff, why was it Monique and not this last woman we just watched? I mean, was it the luck of the draw, or do you think, like you were saying, that she uncovered something about him that maybe he was embarrassed by or couldn't get past? I mean, I suppose he's been dating a lot. I mean, the guy's on Bumble, so why her?
Well, I mean, I don't believe that he killed her.
And so the thing, though, also is that was taken 7 years ago. Or it could also be AI hoax. Let's face it. That's this. You always got to question if things can be AI. So unless he was lying about his age on Bumble, his current profile would say his age, 39. So this means that was taken 7 years ago. And even if he didn't delete his profile, his age would still go up. So it would say 39.
Because she knew something about him and she wanted to cover it up. What she probably found out or learned about him was what caused her to leave, and leave in the manner that she did, where she just packed up and he comes home one day and she's gone and she took the dog. And and really the ex-girlfriend, her explanation of how he explained it's pretty consistent with the type of mindset that this individual would have to commit these types of crimes, when he sees himself as the victim. And you know, he you know, just really would not hold himself accountable or have any empathy relative to the acts that he carried out, relative to having any sense of regret for what he did. And I think it's pretty consistent with what we saw when he went into the extradition hearing, from the physical mannerisms and this facial expression, just the mindset that this type of individual would have to be able to commit these types of crimes. I just believe he just couldn't get over and felt that she had victimized him, and that really she had it coming. That's really probably as simple as his mindset was.
Wow. Going to watch one last clip here from the local news. Shout out to Channel 10 in Columbus, Ohio. This is now, I believe her name is Gina, or so I'm told, Rob Misle's sister, the brother-in-law's sister, about speaking about Spencer and Monique. And then we'll get
so wonderful. We just saw them on Christmas, and the last thing she said to me 3 weeks ago, and we were at Spencer and Maddie's parents, and she was like, "Gina, don't go. Spend the night. We need to talk all night. Let's hang out all night. Let's have a drinks. Let's, you know, just talk and be together." And she was just so sweet. And she was like that to everybody. And she just, there wasn't enough words in the world to describe how beautiful and kind she was. I never saw them fight, never saw them.
So again, her brother was married to Spencer Tepe's sister. Yeah, I think that's what it is. So again, depending on the family, they still might spend a lot of time together, even being that far removed. It just really depends on the family.
argue. We lived in Columbus for a while, so we would hang out with them quite a bit. And never, he would lay down the word, like he would do anything for her. If she didn't feel good, he would, take care of it. If she wanted to leave, he would go. They were just phenomenal. And like I hate like even saying this, but I think she felt so blessed to, after what she had been through in her previous relationship, I think she just felt like she was the luckiest person in the world.
There you go. And it sure sounds like it. We listened to the wedding vows. Wenninger's
Right. And that's what I thought too. Right. When you listen to those wedding vows, it sounds like someone who is so grateful they escaped this awful situation, found someone great that treats them well, and they have a good connection. But now, of course, Michael can't allow that to happen. Very obnoxious.
voice is so low, it is relaxing my jaw through my AirPods. Look at that.
Hey, Joel, everybody's loving my voice. My book is coming out in audio, and I'm actually going to read the book. So if you like my voice, you can buy my audio book.
Yeah, whether you're interested in it or not is now reason to buy On Thin Ice.
And Brian, that's a good point. We don't know if Michael is currently or was currently using steroids, but if he was, that would track as well. Steroids, a little bit of rage, anger, a little bit of fuck it, a little bit of personality disorder, a little bit of sadism, psychopathy, and then boom. Yeah, could definitely be a thing.
Which is right behind Jeff. It is reimagining policing. Jeff was or is a retired lieutenant in the LAPD, served the LAPD and the county for 33 plus years. Jeff, you're an investigator at heart. You were texting me during the lead up to the arrest here. If you're investigating and on this team right now, I guess what clue are you most interested in uncovering? In your final thoughts?
Well, really, it's just about the evidence that's the slam dunk stuff. And, they seem to have, the car, tracking it all the way back to Rockford, and it appears they have the gun in custody, that the warrants that they served in Rockford, Illinois were very fruitful. No, really, it's about the unknown, and we kind of talked about it before.
To me, the matter of guilt seems pretty cut and dry in this case. The car, him walking in the alleyway, the gun matching the shells found at the scene of the crime, ex-husband of Monique, emotionally abusive to Monique, threatened to kill her. Seems like a slam dunk he's guilty. The things that are still interesting to me would be how he got in the house. Was he stalking or cyber stalking? Was there any contact between Monique and him at a point? And I would still like to know, even though Monique's family and the chief of police said that 911 call wasn't Monique, we played them both back to back on this channel. And when Monique was crying in those wedding vows, it did sound similar. It sounded similar to that 911 call. I can't deny it did. Now, would it surprise me if it definitely wasn't? No. But it did sound similar, had that similar cadence. I'd still want to figure out what the hell that was too.
How did he get in there? Really, how did he get into that home? That's just my curiosity speaking. I think we can, have all kinds of scenarios and theories on who this guy really is and what he's all about and what caused him to do this. Was it something that was built up, or was there something that just snapped, or what? But I got to tell you, I came down from Atlanta. I drove up to Ohio just the other day and came through Columbus, and it was just sad. I feel really horrible for that poor family and the poor children, and it just kind of hit a raw nerve when I was driving through Columbus, to think that that's a city that they lived in and that's where this happened. But I don't know. It's just so tragic, so tragic.
It definitely is. Look at this. On Thin Ice audio cures TMJ. And then look at this. Imagine Jeff whispering sweet nothings. Let you guys think about that some more. Jay Fulton, a retired homicide.
Trying to give me nightmares?
detective with the Columbus, Ohio Police Department, the same exact department that is investigating this case. Jay, any more thoughts on just the targeted nature of this attack, which Chief Elaine Bryant talked about, and apparently the fact that Spencer has more gunshots than Monique, but you're talking about, exacting revenge or vengeance against Monique. So why target Spencer, and your final thoughts?
Well, and we've talked in the past. My theory on that would have been that if in fact there is confrontation, the person that can offer resistance, or Spencer is the kind of person, I don't know that Spencer, is he the kind of person who's going to sit there and listen to this, or is he going to come into some kind of action, which may have been what caused him to receive more wounds if he interjected himself into the situation in a defensive manner. I mean, I guess at that point you really have nothing. You have nothing to lose at that point, and so if that's
So this was Surviving the Survivors. It's a good channel to go check out. I don't watch him often, but occasionally he comes up with something like that. Some good detective work there, finding the ex and the sister. And this is Ashley's most recent, the sinister plan.
Banfield, even though it doesn't sound like me, I know this is day 3 with, I just keep calling it the crud. I don't know what it is. I actually feel okay.
She must have got what I had, where I felt like a piece of garbage for a while with no energy. My voice was off. I finally was able to go back to the gym today, but I was not doing too well there last week into a couple days ago.
Sound horrendous, and it's super hard to talk. I have to breathe extra hard, so I apologize up and down for the 3rd day of podcasts, which I call like Brenda Vaccaro, who I love, by the way, but also has this very deep and raspy voice. Anyway, if you can bear with me, I do have a lot to tell you about the double murder in Columbus, Ohio. Something happened today. I expected it. I didn't expect it this soon, and I sure as heck didn't expect the nugget that came out when an indictment came down on Dr. Michael McKee. I'm going to talk all about that in just a moment, and we're going to get really deep into a lot more of the aspects of this case and what's coming next, because everybody has their idea of the path that a murder prosecution is going to take, but nobody knows it better than some of the people you're about to hear from, because the grand jury has spoken. The grand jury in the murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe. 2.5 weeks after the Tepes were gunned down in their own home, a panel has now officially done it. They have indicted the suspect, Dr. Michael McKee. And along with the charges, which I'm going to get to in just a sec, the indictment let slip a pretty tantalizing little detail we had not heard before, and I didn't expect to hear. The shooter used a silencer, or as the grand jurors put it, a muffler or a suppressor. Dr. McKee, who is Mo Tepe's first husband and a vascular surgeon.
Right. So, Tina, that's interesting. That's the first I've heard of that. What I originally heard was Spencer was hit 3 times, Monique once, but now updated reports say that they were both hit multiple times. Okay. Interesting.
From Illinois. He's charged tonight with now 4 counts of aggravated murder and a single count of burglary. And hold on. I did a double take. I thought it was a misprint. I thought it was a false report. 4 counts of aggravated murder. Hold it. He was originally charged with 2 counts of murder. And then they upgraded it and added 2 counts of aggravated murder. So is it really 4 ag murders, or is it 2 and 2? As it turns out, it is 100% 4 counts of aggravated murder, which is unique with 2 victims, but there's a good reason for it. You're going to hear why. And it actually does make sense. If you have been counting the days, you will know that tomorrow it's going to be 1 full week since Dr. McKee was arrested in Rockford, Illinois. I'm recording this episode on January the 16th, and as I come to you tonight, McKee is still sitting in an Illinois jail cell, probably in the yellow scrubs that we saw him appear in court. His extradition and his return to Columbus is still TBA. I'm with you. I think it's weird. It's just a 6-hour drive that he allegedly made himself. So why is it taking more than a week? There's a lot of machinations that go on. The detectives down in Columbus, sometimes they have fugitive task force. They'll go get people. Sometimes they outsource it to companies that actually do these extraditions. And so that might be happening. But there's some logistics they're trying to iron out between Winnebago County and then Columbus and the authorities there. So I have a little news of my own that I want to share with you tonight. And it's like really surprising to say this, but tonight was my very last night on my News Nation show. It's not a surprise because I knew, because I planned it, but it feels weird saying it because I've been in live TV for 38 years. Huh? Yes, 38 years of live television. And I made a huge decision, one that it did not come lightly. It took months to come to this decision, to leave the live television show and to leave TV.
How old is she to have been doing live TV for 38 years? Did you start at 18? 18 and 38 is 56. Is she 56?
As a live entity in general, because I want to focus more on you guys. I want to focus more on this podcast, on Drop Dead Serious. This has become such a passion of mine, and I just feel like it's just super authentic, right down to wearing a hoodie. And I'm going to be giving Drop Dead Serious my full attention now, so I think you can look forward to a lot more from me, not just in the nightly podcast, but also membership benefits and extra product and extra information. Lots of stuff that I'm happy to share with you in the future as I start building this out as a full-time commitment. I love saying that. This is going to be my full-time.
So apparently she's 58, according to the Googs, born December 29th, 1967. And this is the thing. If a person can do it and they have the audience, they're better off doing their own thing. Because when you're on a News Nation, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, that can be good to get your name out there. Because once you're there first, and then you go to YouTube or podcasting, your YouTube or podcast is going to do 10 times better. Because now YouTube's algorithm picks you up more. So that's something that Brian Etten has going in his favor now too. I don't know if he plans on leaving News Nation. No, as far as I know. But once someone has been established, look at people leaving. Piers Morgan. Used to be Piers Morgan Uncensored on CNN. Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson now does his own show. Who else? Who else has done the switch? I'm trying to think. There's got to be more that I just can't think of. Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hassan, I think, used to work for CNN or MSNBC. I forgot which one. Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura had a show with CNN that never aired. You want to know why? Because he was against the Iraq War. And they refused to let him be against the Iraq War. But Jesse Ventura is a man of principles. So he said, you know what? Screw you. If I can't say what I want, I am not going to do this show. I'm against the Iraq War. The end. And so he stayed true to himself and he left. That's why when it comes to someone like Jesse Ventura, you might not agree with everything he says. But I think right now, people that you can trust to be good faith are more valuable than anything. People like him, Dan Carlin, I think he's also good faith. But they're very rare in this day and age. But a nice little tangent.
Commitment. So in honor of my final show at News Nation, my team assembled this all-star panel to join me to discuss the key developments in the Ohio case. So we had Mark Garagos, who you know is a criminal defense attorney, managing partner of Garagos and Garagos. We had Matt Murphy, former senior homicide prosecutor in the Orange County, California DA's office, and Jesse Weber, attorney and host of News Nation's brand new 11 o'clock show, Jesse Weber Live. It premieres on Monday. Please give him all your love. He's so good. He's going to be doing a lot of the content that I was doing at 10. So just check him out at 11 Eastern. Before I get to this amazing conversation, and also Why 4 aggravated murder charges for 2 victims? I also just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting this podcast. I would not have jumped ship if it weren't for you. I couldn't do it without you. I also can't do it without my sponsors because now, like I said, this is my full-time attention. Wild Grain is one of those sponsors, and I want to ask you if you've checked out Wild Grain yet because they are really, really good. It's the first bake from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal to the case. Here's my conversation with Mark Garagos, Matt Murphy, and Jesse Weber. Matt, I'm going to come out of the gate with you. 4 counts.
Matt Garagos from TMZ, 68 years old, younger than 75-year-old Harvey Levin, but looks older because he doesn't dye his hair and maybe doesn't do TRT. I don't know. The tisms in me like the ages. I like numbers.
Indicted by this grand jury, 4 aggravated counts, but 2 murders. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I know Mark had the same thought that I did on this. I bet it's just kind of weird, for lack of a better term. So what they're doing is they're proceeding on 2 different potential theories. The first 2 are what we would call P&D, or premeditation and deliberation. Then count 3 is the burglary by itself, and then counts 4 and 5 are the same murders but with a different aggravating factor where they separately allege murders committed during the course of a residential burglary. So in California, where Mark and I do most of our cases, that basically qualifies it as what's known as a special circumstance. So in the state of Ohio, they technically have a death penalty, but like California, there's a moratorium on it. But that would theoretically make him eligible for life without possibility of parole. So it's a weird way to do it, frankly. But I know Mark was also probably thinking, I can't wait to hear what Mark has to say about this. This was a super fast indictment. We went from, I mean, this is just light speed. He hasn't even been extradited yet from Illinois, and they've already got an indictment waiting for him in the state of Ohio. So the next step, there'll be a bunch of pretrial motions. Ashley, as we'll see the process go on, the next big step will be actual trial now that they've got an indictment in hand.
So Garagos, jump in here, because when I heard quadruple aggravated murder, I sort of felt like the breath went out of any defense attorney who may be lined up to do this case. Is that, as scary as it sounds, are the 2 extra ag murders that have the burglary and insurance policy in case somehow a jury decides maybe it wasn't premeditated?
Well, actually, I think Matt is spot on that when you hear it, not only is it weird, but I think also that when you present this to lay people who are obviously by definition the jurors, it's a...
Now, Mark Garagos here, he also spoke to Alan Jackson the other day as well.
A little bit confusing. It's a little kind of anti-intellectual, if you will.
So his resume: Michael Jackson, Winona Ryder, maybe her shoplifting charges or divorces, and Scott Peterson. Oh.
You would immediately assume that there were multiple or serial. And when it becomes that it's theories, I think that just opens up the defense to all kinds of mischief, frankly. Matt is right that it's like dangling in front of a defense lawyer, just all kinds of things to talk about. Okay, well, you couldn't prove this theory, so you did this theory, or you threw this out. You couldn't follow up on this one. And why are you indicted?
So here's the thing. If you are in a big case like this, that's your one hope. If you're Nick Reiner or Michael McKee, that the status and attention the case is getting makes people do errors. And maybe the errors are in collecting evidence. Maybe the errors are something against protocol. And then they can try to get off on a mistrial. That's probably the biggest concern of the prosecution, is making sure something like that doesn't happen.
And why are you going to a grand jury, and why this rush to judgment? I actually think things like this, when you do it this way, end up backfiring on the prosecution.
So Jesse, you and I have been through a lot of trials together. Some of them are great and some of them are stinkers. And I often think that sometimes the litigators are checking their boxes and forgetting that everybody who's in the jury box is just some dude, right? We just need a story that we can wrap our heads around. And in this particular case, I'm seeing movement and timing and forensics. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, how important is it going to be for these prosecutors to put together a bedtime story for the jurors instead of a checkbox case?
So it's very important. Before I even get to that, Ashley, thank you so much for everything you've always done for my career. I love you. You're amazing. And thank you for having me on your last show. Okay, very important. Why? They need to tell a story. Obviously, motive is not an element that they have to prove. But when you're trying to explain why this guy who is accused of this was divorced for so many years and then all of a sudden, what, snaps? I mean, they have to explain why he would have allegedly traveled 400 miles and killed them in the middle of the night. Remember?
So if you are the prosecution, what you're going to want to do is find domestic violence experts and perhaps people that have lost a spouse in a very similar situation and domestic violence related, and share the commonalities in the pattern. Ah, yes, coercive control, narcissistic abuse, losing control. Doesn't matter how much time has occurred, has elapsed since, that loss of control is still going to be unacceptable to them. In fact, I'd be surprised if they don't have some sort of doctor or professional that speaks to that very thing.
He's charged with aggravated murder. They elevated it to get to life in prison. That's prior calculation and design, that it was premeditated. So what are they going to have to show? They are going to have to show that travel. They are going to have to show he went into that house. They are going to have to show the circumstances of that killing. And there's still a lot we don't know, right? We don't have forensics. We don't have DNA, but they say they recovered a weapon that was tied to it. They now have the car. They have the surveillance footage. They now say that that is him. So being able to tell a clear, concise story about why he would have done this when he hasn't said anything right now, I think that's going to be critical for the prosecution.
So Matt, when we listen to these dribs of information coming out, the average person tends to think slam dunk right away. And that is far from the story for a prosecutor. What in this particular case, given what we know, and it's not a lot, what worries a prosecutor most right now this early on?
Boy, that's a great question, Ashley. I think that where my mind goes is, and I'm sure Jesse and Mark are thinking the same thing, I would love to see his Google searches and see what's in there. There isn't really...
That's another good one. I forgot to mention that before, but that's a good one. What are his Google searches? What are his ChatGPT searches? That would be very interesting.
There isn't really a whole lot right now, based on what's been released. This looks like a very strong case. The silencer was certainly new, or what we'd call a suppressor. But this has all the makings, at least on the surface, and this guy's presumed innocent, of course. This has all the makings of one of those cases where you just got an obsessive ex. And we've all either had an obsessive ex. Mark and I have done these cases together in Southern California, where you got guys that just can't hear the word no. So it's going to be really interesting for me as a former prosecutor to hear what else they've got, what Google searches went on, where he got the suppressors, because those are very expensive, and in a lot of states like California, there's a complete ban on them. So this is going to be, there's a lot more evidence coming our way. You and I talked about this the other night, Ashley, and I think you were the first to get it out. This was a NIBIN hit, which I think is very interesting. So they've got, that's the National Ballistics Database, where they take expanded shell casings from one crime scene and match.
And Eva, that's a good point. The balancing act of having something like truly be authentic and connecting with the audience versus the highly scripted, the highly edited stuff. Clearly, I don't do that, right? What I try to lean into for me is being able to do lives. I mean, a lot of people can't do it. A lot of people can't talk with the pressure on them, so they don't, or they would need a whole team to kind of back them up. But it's a skill set in this day and age. Like, anyone can record a video, and now with AI, to me, it makes recording a video just less valuable. But what can't AI do? To me, the things that AI can't do becomes more valuable.
them to known exemplars. So it sounds like they actually got the firearm here, I think, maybe, but they certainly got expended shell casings from his previous residence. And that is incredibly powerful in front of a jury to link him to these murders.
To a weapon and to a silencer, you're right. So Mark, I mean, we're talking about a lot of the bad stuff that defense attorneys don't like to hear. We're talking about surveillance the police say they have, vehicle timelines the police say they have, a weapon and the silencer suppressor that they allegedly have at this point. Can you see any realistic openings right now for a defense attorney? Again, knowing what we know.
Well, knowing what we know, actually, and I apologize for smiling when Matt was telling that story. I was thinking of one particular case that I'm sure he was referring to that we had against each other, if you want to talk about obsession. But putting that aside, yes, there are openings. I mean, the hit on the shell casings reminds me, I had another case, not similar, but an instrumentality found at the scene. I've actually had two in murder cases. One was a bottle with a fingerprint. Another was a mattress and a bed frame with a fingerprint. We were able to show in both cases and won dismissals in both murder cases that that was just from somebody else. And a good investigator in both cases, separate guys, actually found that out. So I'm not so sure that that's as compelling as it sounds, at least when you frame it the way the prosecutors do. You don't know who brought that casing to the scene. You don't know what the circumstances were of the exemplars and everything else. There's always a lot more to it. I mean, remember, the best day in a lot of these circumstantial evidence cases for the prosecutor is the day they announce it, which is one of the reasons they always want to get a gag order on the defense after that.
I think the best day is when they have openings before the defense goes up and gives their opening. Jesse, speaking of the narrative, legally, it is very smart to exercise your right to remain silent, which this defendant did eventually when he was in cuffs. But then when it comes to the media, it makes you look so guilty. And there is a jury pool out there somewhere wanting to know anything more about this. I know what you're going to say, but I want to know why you're going to say it. He should never say another damn word. Why?
Because it used against him. I mean, the Timothy Busfield case this week was the complete opposite, right? Different circumstances, different charges, but he was fighting a case in the court of public opinion and the court of law. This is somebody who's a private citizen. He has not said one word. I think that's very wise. Allow his attorney to do the talking. And right now, he doesn't have to prove anything. What they are going to try to do is dismantle the prosecution's case any which way they can, any which way. The car evidence, the ballistic evidence, the surveillance footage, go that route. If he says anything, it could potentially be used against him. And if it's only his choice, if he ever decides to take the stand. So right now, there's really nothing he should say or could say that I think would help him.
I was just saying the narcissists have like the same thing as your Miranda rights, they're called. When you're placed under arrest, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The same thing happens with narcissists. Everything you say can and will be used against you later, so be careful. They'll certainly throw everything in your face. And I actually did a whole spiel about it once. I invented the narcissist Miranda rights. I have to look it up and read it because I forget what I even said.
Jesse Weber, Mark Garagos, Matt Murphy, my final goodbye to you on News Nation. I can't thank you enough for being on this program tonight and for being so smart and helpful all the time. And Jesse, best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
It's a real honor, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
For bringing us in. Yeah.
So clearly we are only at the beginning of this case in Ohio. I think we are basically in the same situation with wondering again, why? That's where Brian Koberger left us. And we'll never get that answer. I really don't think we will. Why? Why would you do something like this? Why would you choose those?
I mean, this is, I just disagree with Ashley on this. If you understand domestic violence, abusive relationships, narcissistic abuse, coercive control, and you understand them, then it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. It's just more of an extreme example. Now, just if I try to think of him as a normal person, though, I remove the personality disorder part. If I were to see him as another man, what would I say to him as another man? I'd be like, dude, there's plenty of women out there, dude. Like, Why are you giving this woman so much power over your present life? It's like, dude, get a grip. And that's what a guy friend is supposed to do for somebody, kind of kick your friends in the ass a little bit. Not in a mean way, like narcissists would. That guy Connor Beaton calls it calling them forward as opposed to calling them out. Calling them out can be about you. Calling them forward is about them. So you say, Michael, dude, you're a freaking surgeon, man. You're a surgeon. You're 6'2". To some people, you have won the lottery. Now, granted, when you have a personality disorder, that does impact everything. But on the surface, 6'2", hundreds of thousands of dollars a year salary, not a bad looking person. It's like, dude, there's plenty of people out there. Move forward. Don't ruin your life. Don't throw away other people's lives and your own at the same time just because of a loss of control. Just unnecessary.
For innocent kids. How could you actually perpetrate that crime? Will we get answers in this case? Dr. McKee, he's innocent until proven guilty. Things don't look good for him right now, that's for sure. And of course, the answer would be, why so many years later? What on earth got into you, if in fact you did it? This case is still very much unfolding. We're going to continue to follow every single development in it closely. I'd always ask you to subscribe so you don't miss one of these episodes when we give you new information. Also, I love hearing from you. Please drop us a line in the comments. We love to hear your comments. I've been reading a lot of them, and so many of you are so nice about my awful voice. Thank you. I'm fine. I'm actually totally fine. I've never had an illness like this where it's just knocked me out at my moneymaker. Like literally, it's what I do for a living. I talk. So I can't believe I got this, whatever this crud is. And it's really made it hard for me.
All right, Ashley. We'll be seeing more of you on the Tube of You, though. More Ashley on the Tube of You instead of on News Nation. And I bet that Dr. Michael McKee certainly was a loner. I had to guess, cold and aloof in the office, not really any guy friends, not really like drinking buddies or gym buddies or fill in the blank. Because those things can sometimes be a little bit of the antidote to this. Again, nothing's a guarantee, but those kinds of thoughts and thinking, they grow in the dark. That's what they'll say in 12-step programs. Your secrets and your dark thoughts, they grow in the dark, but they die in the light of exposure. So he clearly didn't do that. And he clearly just threw away his life and ruined 2 others. And 2 more, if you include their kids. Just so unnecessary. But that's why men's work is needed out there. That's why the people that help people in coercive control, domestic violence situations, that's needed too. All of this is needed. Yes, that's the name of Megan's show. Drop Dead Serious. Thank you, the pretend judge. And so you know, I'm calling you PJ in the chat, the pretend judge. So you know. And just like I call beautiful B now, although beautiful is not here. But she's B. Beautiful's B. Sable is Cat. Wingsley is Ellie. So those are the names that I see. Or I call people that you might not see them as those names, but that's what I say. Because many of them have been here for a long time. But remember also that there's been people trying to tell me again, oh, not all narcissists are abusive. Personality disorders are not abusive. It's like, dude, way more of them are, if not all of them. If you break down what narcissists are, they are exploitative, entitled, grandiose, antagonistic, have impaired empathy. That is a recipe for abuse. So I don't want to hear it. Like other people trying to me, I'm perpetuating stigmas or whatever nonsense they say. It's like, no, you are enabling abuse to continue if you really just want me to stop saying narcissist and just say abuser. It's like, give it a rest. Give it a rest. Yes, I do. My supplements help my memory, I think. Choline. Choline's good for your memory. NAC is good for your word recall. Yes, they do, Heather. Narcissists do indeed bite. And another one bites the dust, as they say. But yeah, I don't like the people that say that, though, about they're not all abusive, stigma. It's like, you know what? If you're a narcissist, why don't you just spend your time improving yourself? How about that? Instead of trying to police how other people talk about it. I also saw there was a study that Dr. Mark Ettinson made a video about recently that said there's no correlation between abuse and NPD. But get this. They're saying coercive control is not abuse in the study. So it's like, what the hell kind of study is that? If you're not going to say coercive control is abuse, what are you even saying? Just ridiculousness. Yeah, it was a woman saying that to me, Hannah. Yes, it was. Although men say it too. Men say it too. They both do. Most of them are part of the self-aware narc community, though. Which I am not the biggest fan of anymore. I tried to give them a chance, but I've been burned by them. So I've washed my hands and said no more. The only one I'm still on good terms with, really, is HG Tudor. But I don't even consider him a part of the community. He's not even trying to change. And so in a way, I trust him more. Right, Tina? Right? So how can you trust a study that says coercive control is not abuse? It's like, come on. They're jumping through all these hoops to try to prove that narcissists aren't all abusive. It's like, just stop it. Like, it's okay to admit that personality disorders can be abusive. Just try to do something about it. That's all. Do what you can. If you have enough awareness to recognize you have enough awareness to recognize that you can do something to try, have the willingness, and then work on some honesty and humility. That would be key. Have a good one, Mystic. I appreciate you, Mystic. Glad you found us. You don't like that, then, Sam? I hear you, because they can't possibly be saying coercive control is not abuse. That's absurd. So that whole argument is just ridiculousness. I try not to pay much mind. But I'm learning in the social media era. I've learned to stop posting as much on Facebook. Comments can be rough. They can be rough on the soul. You got to be in a good place to even read them. But all right, guys. Yes, PJ, it is crazy work to say it's not. They're just trying to jump through all these hoops to say narcissists are just powerless over their disorder. Abuse is different. It's like, they're trying to say abuse is a choice, narcissism isn't. But it's like, but 99.9% of narcissists are making that choice. So what are we doing here, B? What are we doing here? They're doing it. So we're helping the people who have been victimized. We're helping people that didn't know what they were dealing with. Maybe they've had narcissistic parents. Maybe they had a narcissistic romantic partner. That's what this stuff is for. And in the process, they'll say, oh, you're demonizing. It's like, no, if sharing their behaviors is demonizing, then so be it. So be it, I say. You got it, Ellie. But yes, Heather, Brian, Tony, Ellie, Sam, Kat, PJ, Mystic, everyone else, Tina, George. No demerits for George recently either, which is good. Gotta watch out for that. And Anne, you as well? Yeah, this is true. And Hannah? There you go. It's about time for popcorn, carrots, and oranges for me too. Good job, there, George. No demerits for you. You're on the ball. But all right, everybody. Over and out. And I will see you all tomorrow night.